We've discussed Zach Lavine trade rumors heavily over the past few months, and we've even mentioned DeRozan, Vooch, and we haven't really touched on Lonzo Ball. Well, this video today is going to discuss about how Lonzo Ball could net us a player that could put us in the other direction. Instead of having to rebuild, it could be a quick retool and us being a playoff contender right away. This is your host, Joey Mercer. This is another episode of Bulls Digest. And before we get into it there today, I just want to say that about 85% of you that watch these videos are not subscribed. So make sure, if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, to go down below, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell for notifications, and every single time we upload, you will be notified so you can stay up to date with your Chicago Bulls. So, without further ado, let's get into the topic at hand there today, and that is Bulls targeting Brogdon. So, we haven't really mentioned that at all. I mean, I think we briefly touched on it a little over a month ago, but there was one analyst that actually came out speculating that this is the direction that the Bulls should be going, as opposed to just blowing things up. There could be something small that they could make a move for while getting rid of some pieces that right now don't look like they're going to turn into anything for immediate success. That being one piece being Lonzo Ball and some other things that we're going to mention later on this video, but let's get right into the title of that article. This one I found on Yahoo Sports under Bulls Wire and said Malcolm Brogdon to the Chicago Bulls, while one analyst thinks it's a good idea. Now this analyst is from Bleacher Report, and we're going to discuss why this one I don't fully agree with, but I will give you my full take on what has been broken down by Zach Buckley, of course. This says, while many NBA analysts have the Chicago Bulls as sellers, what if they flipped the script and added veteran talent instead? This is exactly what Bleacher Report's Zach Buckley has in mind for the Bulls, with a deal that has them picking up Portland Trail Blazers floor general Malcolm Brogdon. So nobody has really mentioned about Brogdon going to the Bulls. I believe this is the first time that I've seen it just on its own article about it. I mean, people have talked about plans for the Bulls to kind of blow things up. We've discussed them here, and Brogdon had been mentioned as a guy that you could get and then flip again, but they haven't mentioned him as being a guy that can make us have a deep playoff push, and that's where it's mentioned differently here, which is really what drew my attention to this article in the first place. Next thing we saw in it was Brogdon's numbers don't jump off the page at about 15 points and 5 assists, plus he's a 31-year-old with a history of various ailments, notes Buckley. He should not cost a premium, saying that he offers playoff experience, fits on or off the ball, and adds value on both ends of the floor, so he isn't someone Portland would just give away either. Now, I'm not sure about that. Portland did get Malcolm Brogdon in there to help kind of mentor the guys, just get some value back for pieces they had to trade in that Drew Holiday deal where they had to flip him again, but I don't really think that Portland is looking to hold on to Brogdon by all accounts. I think it's been difficult because of the injuries, the history with Brogdon with injuries. We didn't know what it was going to be like coming into the season. He has been very good so far, and we thought the field goal percentage, of course, would take a dip. And it has a little bit, but nothing too drastic, just because the shots he's getting are definitely not as good as the ones he was getting in Boston when he won Sixth Man of the Year last season. Next thing this article we saw was, but given reports that Chicago is trying to avoid a full rebuild while changing their identity, Brogdon could be a veteran connector in Chicago, and his versatility should allow him to fit with anyone, according to the BR analyst. And, that is true. He has been in this league for a long time. He won Rookie of the Year in 2016 to 17, and he was a fringe all-star when he got moved to the Indiana Pacers. He then goes to the Boston Celtics, and despite injury woes, becomes a player that is really a huge part of their bench, winning Sixth Man of the Year, and they go on a very deep playoff push into the conference finals last year. It was definitely a lot of help for Malcolm Brogdon, as he's a very savvy player that I enjoy watching play as well. And it's no secret that he is a great shooter, albeit a different, unorthodox form. He definitely gets things done from behind the arc. Now, when we look at his field goal percentage this season in just a minute, it's lower than you would think it should be, but it's not that bad. It's definitely able to go up a couple percentage points and then be very solid. And the three-point shooting is still very good considering the types of shots that he's having to take. Next thing we saw in this, and the last thing we saw in the article, was the deal which would have Julian Phillips, Lonzo Ball, and a Blazers first-round pick headed to Portland. Might see this as a cost-cutting opportunity, given Ball's insurance covering his salary, as well as regaining control of their pick. If this were amenable to Portland, and we are not sure that it would be, this is not a terrible plan for a retool. Now, I understand the Bulls have this Trailblazers pick. I'm not sure the details behind that, exactly how it's going to work out if the Bulls are looking to keep that. It really depends on the goal that the Bulls are looking for at the end of the season. Do they want to be in the play-in again, just hope for the best, then have that pick? Do they want to flip it right now back to Portland, get Brogdon, make a deeper push in the playoffs, hopefully? Or do you just want to rebuild and keep Julian Phillips, hope Lonzo Ball comes back from injury, and then hold on to the pick and not do any of this? Honestly, I don't think it would be worth it moving this. Julian Phillips has shown a few signs of being something. Nothing that I wouldn't trade him, of course, on making a big playoff push. I definitely would move him for that. But I don't know if Brogdon's going to be enough to move him a first and then Lonzo. I understand Lonzo's almost like just an expiring contract at this point because he's probably not going to come back anytime soon, and we don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back. However, I do try to keep optimism in that. But it's definitely a worry in a trade, so that's why you'd have to add in the first there on top of that. But I'm not so sure if I love this move, but these are the numbers Brogdon's put up, and he can bring a lot to the table, so I'll let you guys make a decision for yourselves on that. Sorry. You can see last season in 2022-23, at the age of 30, and it's good to mention as well, Brogdon's almost 32. You can see that in 67 games, he comes off the bench every game, he's not starting. That right there, the 26 is the minutes per game. Only playing 27 this year, and he hasn't started in 14 of those, so interesting look there, having him come off the bench for some of those games for Scoot. Then when we can see 48% from the field last year, albeit, once again, on an attempt and a half less per game. His field goal percentage has gone down 4%, which is a bit of a dip. However, it is because he's on the Trailblazers, not getting his good looks, not around other guys to take pressure off of him. When you have Tatum and Brown out there, obviously those guys are much better scorers than anybody the Trailblazers have. Next to Brogdon, their best scorer is probably Jeremy Grant, which is not all that great at the end of the day. And 41% for three this year on more attempts, almost an attempt more, down from 44. That's not as big of a dip when you look at it. He's making more threes. Still over 40%. That is crazy efficiency. It's just from two, he's nowhere near as efficient. A lot more attempts coming from two this season as opposed to last year as well. Just about one more a game when you look at the average. But then we look at the free throw shooting, and he's down to 80% from 87. This was the guy that was really hovering around 90 just a few years ago. Now down to 80%, so that's something that's taken a dip, which doesn't really have any explanation for. Something to worry about. Maybe he's getting banged up a little bit more. But we can see he is putting up about the same amount of points per game at 15. He is putting up 3.5, as you can see it there, is the rebounds per game. So less on Portland. Ayton's out there, of course. And the Celtics didn't really have a center, so a lot more guys getting more boards over at the Celtics last season. And the 5.2 is assists, so assists have gone up 1.5. Fair with the ball in his hands as much as it is. But yes, still at 31 years old, a very productive player that the Bulls could acquire, and he can make an instant impact if we're looking at making that playoff run. If we aren't, stay away from this at all causes. But it is an interesting point that we could move Julian Phillips, who might not be anything at the end of the day. We don't really know, and it was a late pick. Then Lonzo Ball, who we don't know when he's coming back, what he's going to be like when he comes back. And then the first round pick, which is the Trailblazers to begin with, which would be the real caveat of this trade. But it could be worth it if you can get a solid playoff push, or maybe just one next year if we can get the right pieces in place for next season. This has been your host, Joey Mercer. I hope you all enjoyed the video there today. And if you did, make sure to go down below, like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Sign off.